I have the honor of leading the next session. Joining me on the virtual stage are my fellow CIO leaders from Asana, Linksys, e.l.f. Beauty, and Silicon Valley Bank to discuss their experience and the importance of IT's role in a post-pandemic world. Welcome, friends. All right, let's kick it off. So I'm leading the session, so I'm gonna go off script a little bit. So I'm gonna have everyone introduce themselves first, and then we're gonna jump right into the questions. So I want this to be an engaging discussion, so I'm gonna call on folks initially, but I want everyone to feel free to chime in as well. All right? So Ekta, let's start with you. Let's introduce, who are you? Where are you coming from? Where do you work? It's a little bit of blur about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Ekta Chopra. I'm the Chief Digital Officer for e.l.f. Beauty, and our head office is based in Oakland, California, but I'm in beautiful Dublin, California right now. It's a sunny day and excited to be part of this amazing panel. Thank you.
All right, I'll go next.
Sure.
Sham Chatterjee, CIO at Linksys, the home router company. We're soon coming to the enterprise market as well. So you'll be seeing us more often, especially with the hybrid workforce model here to stay for the foreseeable future. Happy to be here.
I can go next. Saket Srivastava, CIO at Asana. Very new to Asana. This is week 5 week 5 at Asana. I come from Block, which was also formerly known as Square. Ekta and I are neighbors. I'm in Pleasanton, California. Headquartered in San Francisco, and I'm dialing in from San Francisco. Glad to be here.
Great. So I'm Pankaj Jain. I'm Divisional CIO at Silicon Valley Bank. I'm in warm, sunny Phoenix, where it's already 107 degrees, but it's great during the winter. And I've been with Silicon Valley for 2 years. We're going through a large modernization program. I'm loving every bit of it, and I'm really excited to be here today. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, welcome again. It sounds like weather is great in all locations, so that should be a good sign for a good party we're going to have right now, all right? So starting off, I'm going to kick off with an easy question, right? And I'm going to start with Sham, right? So what are the biggest challenges to managing a complex IT portfolio in a post-pandemic world?
Well, in my opinion, this is not just about managing a complex portfolio. We all heard about the Great Resignation. So it's attracting and retaining talent, especially in a distributed workforce. That to me remains one of my biggest challenges. I'm living through it, right? I think we all are. I'm all ears. We usually have our tech stack, and now we need to work and think out of the box even more. How to engage our employees who are working, from every part of the country, if not the world. So to me, when I think about that, collaboration comes to mind because in my opinion, again, it's nothing like having that human face-to-face interaction, the water cooler interaction that we used to have, and that's missing today. I joined Linksys, a couple of months ago during this pandemic. It was extremely hard for me, and I know we were just discussing this right before the call. It was extremely hard for me to really figure things out, which is what excited me about this event. I really want to learn more. I'm all ears. I'm all here to share my experience, but I'm all ears how to improve and increase that onboarding experience, figuring things out as a new employee, so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sham. Anyone else want to answer that question?
I'll just say that I'll plus one that's top of mind for all of us, really. Companies are starting to ask folks to come back in some shape or form as well. And being able to hire, retain, grow talent, technology is the easier part. It's how can you sort of get people motivated to kind of do the right thing for the company, retain them. That's really top of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say +2 to that. Because that is the biggest challenge, retaining and energizing that workforce to still deliver the great results. I think that's like our biggest challenge collectively in the room. So
yeah, agree with that. And I think the big challenge that we see is like, how do we enable managers to lead a hybrid workforce, right?
Yeah.
Because this is something like which they have not seen before, right? Typically, we either had a predominance of remote or a predominance of in-office work, right? Now we are looking at could be like a 40-60 or a 50-50 or whatever be it, right? So that's where, like, how do you drive that connectedness across the two populations? And sometimes that can be very challenging, right? And if not done right, that could lead to attrition, to Ekta's point, right? So really, like, at the end of the day, I feel like it shouldn't matter where we live and work, but we have to have a plan to drive that collaboration and connectedness right across the workforce. And I think that is really key.
And one thing that, if I may very quickly add, we all realize that we've got to learn through this journey. There's not one way that's going to work for everyone. We've got to be flexible. We've got to be empathetic to our employees and also understand the business needs, and then sort of chart our path on what this future looks for us from a people standpoint.
Awesome. Thank you all for that. I noticed a theme there. None of you mentioned technology. It was all people. As I tell people all the time, my job is more about managing people's expectations and delivering. The technology is the easy part. So thank you all for those answers.
Right. The experience, let's put it that way.
Absolutely. That's actually my theme for all my projects this year is the employee experience. And it's rings true. Next question. And we're going to go with Pankaj for this one. What's the best way for IT to take the lead on driving software adoption?
Well, I actually believe that strong product and tech partnership is critical in driving any software adoption. And part of my background is also driving a lot of work in the product management space. So when I think about it, product defines what needs to be built, right? And then tech defines how to build it the right way. But then it's a joint responsibility of product and tech to collaborate on software adoption. So in my experience, this collaboration should start very early in the product lifecycle. And ideally, we should be leveraging agile practices, right? Deploying software to our customers at a regular cadence, and use the feedback from the customers to improve the product, right? And in addition, work with product on product analytics to improve, to learn how the product is being used and improve the product. So I think if we can dramatically improve the probability of acceptance of the product by the customer, right, that would lead to greater adoption. It's really about building the right product. And today I feel like that's still the greatest waste in software development, right? You can build products, but if you build the wrong product the right way, it still doesn't matter, right? So to me, it starts all the way, like, build the right product and then collaborate with product to install or deploy the product or drive software adoption.
Right. With me, if I may jump in here, love what you said, Pankaj. And if there's some in the audience who's worked for me in the past, they're going to smile. At the end of the day, it's all, what problem are we trying to solve? Right? We want to ensure alignment with our business strategy. That's what we always strive to do. We want to make sure that it's simple. The new generation of employees, God bless them, they want the Amazon-like experience all the time, and then they come to work and they're like, what the hell?
Yep.
And so when we think about product, and I know one of the questions you asked was about the product mindset. I constantly ask my team, what problem are we trying to solve? How is it going to help? And then we get into the whole IT governance, so on and so forth, and we try to build that relationship. So I think everything works in tandem before we put something in front of our employees. And I'm talking, internal employees, internal customers at this point.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. You go ahead.
So interesting and yet not surprising that we're all sort of answering in a very similar way. and that's what exactly it is. The way I think of software adoption, product management mindset from an IT lens, absolutely important as well, right? how can we now become a team that's enabling, that's empowering, that's truly understanding? You talked about employee experience, so important, right? We can no longer be a team or a function which is sitting behind the desk and saying yes or no. That does not work. How can you sort of make people understand what's in the ecosystem, what is it being used for, and provide that consultation, that guidance, build that partnership with them so that they trust your inputs as well? I think that's really the way to go.
Yeah. And I'll just tie a bow on top of it because we're all saying the same thing is, in my role, what I learned, and it's been sort of a learning for me as a chief digital officer who has to pay attention to a consumer, I have to pay attention to my employee the same way. So putting yourself in the shoe of that employee and really sort of designing an experience that is truly unique for them, I think is very important. And I think oftentimes we start with building the tech and not focusing on the user experience part of it, which is absolutely critical, whether it's external or internal. So that's my bow on top of everything that we just said.
I love that. I love that. And again, we're all saying the same thing, so we're a good company here. I love this. And you all kind of segued into my next questions. I'm going to ask the question. I might change it up a little bit, but what role specifically should cross-departmental partners play in IT strategy, and what role should IT play in cross-departmental strategy? Right. So kind of what you all said, but let's dig into that a little bit and just coming up with the strategy behind that. And Ekta, let's start with you.
I think it's, once again, for me, this is a partnership. And I make that very, very clear up front. It's not one dictating the other. We're building solutions to really enable the business. So when it comes to business enablement, I think it's important that it is a joint partnership, and that's non-negotiable. And that's been sort of a really clear thing that's made sort of my journey, really successful in adoption. It's because that's a discussion that happens at the very forefront, especially when it's large, complex projects where there's going to be heavy amount of change management involved. And it's not just changing the tech, it's how they're working is changing. So I would say it's a joint, non-negotiable partnership.
Yeah, fully agree. To expound on the partnership is the relationship building, right? And that's something that I really miss, coming into the office and meeting with my peers and others across the business. It is so important to build that, and you throw in IT governance to make sure we align with our business strategy again. Now, all of those are really critical. They participate in our IT strategy, make sure we're fully transparent. I'm really big on that. And whatever we are doing, it's for the benefit of the business to enable all the various business functions. Now, that's the way I've always operated. You got to build that trust. And to what Ekta just mentioned, it's that relationship building, the partnership building, very, very critical.
Yeah. So we talked about partnership. We've talked about trust, right? So important. You can talk as much as you can, or as much as you want to meet, you can meet people, but that's not how trust gets built. A little bit, yes, but trust also gets built through delivery. Yeah. How can you make sure that you're solving the problems and solving them right, and then establishing that trust? I don't believe that the lines are quite blurry at this point in time. You can't operate in a model where the business is doing its piece and then handing it over to IT, right? I'm a firm believer in IT starting to have a stronger context of what the business problems are, right? So in many ways, that co-creation, us being able to shadow, see a day in a life of, starting to understand and appreciate what the business wants, informing them that this is what technology brings, and these are the possibilities that technology can bring, so that we can expand the problem space and start thinking of solution in a bigger and a better way. That really is the foundation for that partnership.
Okay.
I would like to basically give an example of how we are manifesting this, right, at SVB. So I'll give the example of how we interact with cybersecurity and the controls office, right? So we work very closely with them, and to the point where we have joint OKRs with them, right? And security also is so important to us that we have a separate pillar in our tech strategy just for security. right? We have well-defined OKRs for security. And same thing with the chief controls office, right? We have specific OKRs related to technology control. So the reason why it's important for us, because we are a large financial institution, right? We're highly regulated. So these are critical areas for us and strong focus on delivering on our security and control. So the important aspect here is like how to manifest this in real life. So the best way in my experience has been to create these joint OKRs. So there is kind of a shared understanding of what needs to be delivered, and it's very concrete, right? It's like you have to deliver key results by the end of the year. So what we are seeing, especially in practice here, is this intergroup collaboration really is producing superior results.
The one thing that I have started to do more is hire product managers within the CIO function as well. Historically, that was not the notion, but being able to hire people who can understand the what, the people who can, I almost look at them as people who can create that vision. They're kind of dreamers. They can enable people to think more broadly and expand the possibilities as well. And then obviously work with the delivery team to kind of go deliver.
I love that. And a follow-up question I have for the group is these partnerships that we have and that product-led mindset. Was that easier or harder before the pandemic?
I think for personally in my role, I think we pre-pandemic too was a very product focused sort of lens that we were looking at. And in the beginning, it felt like, okay, we just have to like maybe rethink it a little bit, but it's the same. Like, I don't think there's a big difference as long as you have the right people in the right seat who are connected to the business and, really speak the business language and understand the purpose and the what. I think whether they're remote or internal, or whether it's pandemic or post-pandemic, it's been a pretty smooth journey for us from that perspective.
Yeah. And to me, I agree with Ekta. For the most part, it's not been too much of a difference. Where I would see a difference is the strategizing piece of it, right? Where you have to do brainstorming, you have to get onto a whiteboard because it's really hard to express ideas when you're not on a whiteboard, right? Especially when you're in a brainstorming phase. So I just found that it took us far longer to come to a consensus, right, without the whiteboarding piece. And I know there are tools to do it like online and all of that, but they don't work as good as a physical whiteboard. And everybody being in a room, right, and being engaged. So I think that's where I think the outcome, you ultimately get to the same outcome, but it's a lot harder, right? Just because you could have short circuited the process if everybody was in the room, right, collaborating around a whiteboard. So that was the only difference that I saw.
Yeah, and I realized how much I missed these brainstormings and these whiteboarding sessions once I started coming back to the office. Through the pandemic, we had learned ways to still be efficient and productive, but clearly that in-person collaboration takes you to the next level.
There was a recent Wall Street Journal piece that argued that having an IT department is exactly what will prevent companies from being innovative, agile, customer-focused, and digitally transformed. They say that's because IT departments are from a bygone era and are ill-suited to the demands of a digital-first world. Do you agree with this argument? Why or why not? Let's start with Saket.
Yeah, obviously I disagree.
Of course.
My function, my role. But really, if IT continues to operate in ways that are traditional, maybe in the 90s or early 2000s sort of mindset, perhaps, or being that back office function, trying to be that gatekeeper, and then say no and be authoritative about things, then yes, an IT is really going to hold the company back. But we've all been talking about how forward-thinking IT is now these days, with this product management mindset, with this partnership, with focus on delivery and excellence as well. IT is certainly very relevant and super important on how to kind of bridge that business strategy with that technology strategy, right? IT needs to continue to enable, empower some bit of experimentation so that we can innovate faster. But the way IT leaders are now thinking about IT, I think IT is so important. The importance of IT is has only increased over the last few years, in my opinion.
Ditto. Totally agree with that. I think distributed workforce has just like the increased amount of it, as well as more people shopping online and everything that COVID has gifted us in many ways. I think has sort of reshaped the thinking around IT. But even before that, I think technologists who only focused on making things about governance and this, but not thinking about sort of what they're delivering and how it's impacting people and what that change needs to be. I think those are the ones that I do agree have to rethink their and pivot to a new strategy. But the product mindset of IT, that big shift, is really helping in sort of justifying the value even of what IT can bring to the table. So.
Right. So this Wall Street Journal journalist who wrote this article, that person must have been working with IT 1.0, back in the 80s and 90s, right? That's a quote unquote old way of running IT. We're no longer that way. Absolutely not. I don't know of one CIO who operates with that kind of mindset. And believe me, in the Bay Area, we know a lot of people.
Well, in that article, he quoted some CIO. I don't know who the CIO was, but he quoted some things from that. And I'll make sure I see in the article so you can see it and have a laugh at it like I did. So.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I think really, if you look at, using that analogy, right, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, I don't know where we are now, but assuming 3.0, but it's really about, are we working in a silo, right, within our own domains, right? So you have the business, you have product, you have tech, right? You have operations, you have all these different areas. Are we working separately or are we working together? And when I say together, is that what is binding us together, right? And it should be really, if you think about it, it goes back to you want to build products that our customers love, right? And how do you do that? You do that through collaboration, right? So then you almost like, you have your own HR hardline reporting structures, right? But when you come together to work, you don't think about your HR structures. You think about your customer, right? You think about how do we deliver delightful products to our customers. So a concrete example I can give is like at Schwab, when we were doing digital transformation, we brought all 4 disciplines together: the product discipline, the tech discipline, the design, user experience, research and design discipline, and data and analytics discipline, right? And all these 4 roles collaborated in the delivery of the customer journey, right? And there was no the lines were blurred between who reports where, because it doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, you have a very customer-focused lens and you deliver what's right for the customer. So when you get into such organizations, or when the organizations start to leverage some of these structures, right, and these customer-centric models, I think you start to see like better outcomes being delivered, right? And then all this conversation around whether IT is doing its job or product is doing its job, it doesn't matter because it's one team. So to me, like that is the future, right? And really, it just everybody's on its own. Every company is on its own maturity curve. So it depends on where they are.
Right. Well said, Pankaj. And if I may just add really quickly, a lot of companies also still really haven't figured out what the IT function can do for the business, right? And that's what the CIO typically walks into. And, speaking from personal experience, I know there are other questions related to this, but when business functions run off and have their own quote unquote shadow IT because it's oh so easy, it does lead to chaos. Data, they're focusing on their own little piece, own little pie, and they don't, look at the flow of data or the architecture holistically that we IT people do. And that makes a lot of difference. And in my opinion, not sounding like an IT bigot, I think the quicker that executive management recognizes that versus waiting till the disaster and chaos happens, I think the better it is for the business, especially in this day and age.
I don't know if we have time, but I did have a a little bit of a different view on that shadow
Sure.
IT.
Let's do it.
I actually think that shadow IT's got to start looking at that as an opportunity of converting them into advocates and ambassadors for IT. They're clearly closer to the business. So everything that we talk about, that partnership, that change management, we can really do wonders when we convert them into advocates, as opposed to just saying blanket, no, you don't need to exist. So we've got to find ways wherein we can empower and enable them, and yet through that also bring them in a construct that everything around the architecture and the landscape, Sham, that you're referring to, we're being collectively more thoughtful about as well.
Thank you for that. So we are running up on time, and I have a lot of questions I want to chat with you all. We'll do that in more detail. We know we're all in Slack together, right? So I want to leave you with an easy one, right? What's the future of IT? Right? What's the future of IT in your world, in your mind, 2022 and beyond? And let's start with Sham.
So I feel the future of IT is going to be increased business savvy, increased partnerships, increased transparency. We have to be that way. Call it IT version 3.0 or whatever else have you. We are a business function, and companies are still trying to figure us out based on personal experience again. And it's our job to change that, and the more we do, I think this COVID, this pandemic has really proven that, literally overnight. I know this is what my team accomplished. My entire organization, all 3,000 employees, went remote. There wasn't even a blip, to our operations at all. And kudos to IT for making that happen. And I'm sure this is a similar story across the board.
Agreed.
In one word, future is bright. This is the best time to be in IT. The opportunity, the ability, and the impact that IT is creating in driving better employee experience, in driving better customer experiences as well. We've never been able to kind of do that as much in the past. So I think the opportunity is really there for us to now go take it home. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think future is really how do we accelerate business agility, right? To me, like that is key. And I think going forward, tech will be expected to deliver high quality, resilient products with lower cost and fast time to market, right? That is key. And I think the best way to think about it, at least from my perspective, is like, when do we get to composable software, right? Where we stop building new stuff and we'll start leveraging existing stuff, right? Cloud is already kind of pushing us in that direction because everything in cloud is an API,
of course,
right? So same concept applies to our thinking about software. Like, are we driving an API first mindset within our organization, right? Are we leveraging cloud patterns? Are we applying DevSecOps to drive that fast time to market, lower cost, right? So all these modernization elements, I think, are key, and it's not going to be something that is optional anymore, right? You gotta be on these practices and deliver that business agility which is expected. So I think, to me, like that is where we are going.
I like that. Ekta, closing remarks.
Okay, I'll do another bow. Okay, because everybody said everything that I wanted to say. So my bow is going to be very marketing, fluffy bow. It's going to be, one of the things that we do at e.l.f. is we always listen to our community. We listen to our users and then use that data to sort of understand what sort of products are we selling. So having your ears to the ground and really listening to your employees and understanding their needs and listening to your business, and having your head in the stars, which is around looking at what are the new ways and the new thinking and the new, processes or technology that can serve your business and enable your business, and doing it at speed and doing it with speed of execution. So I think that treading all those three things and balancing them is going to be the future. And future is here. So it's not, something new. So that's my bow on top of everything else what everybody said. So
all right. Thank you all. I was honored. I love it. Thank you all for taking time to chat with us today. It was my pleasure. Next up, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. Take this time to grab yourself a cup of coffee, stop by the product spotlight to meet with the Pendo team or network with other attendees. The networking on the left side of your screen will automatically match you with other attendees to share your favorite thing you've heard today. We'll see you back at the main stage in about 10 minutes.